She was the ghost of the garrison, a soldier shamed for her cowardice. But the forbidden emblem on her arm told a different story, one written in secrets and fire, a story a 4-star general was about to read. Fort Stryker, Texas, was a place where careers went to die, and Sergeant Maya Rostova was its living ghost. The sun beat down on the dusty base with unforgiving heat, mirroring the relentless glare of judgment that followed her every step. 2 years ago, she had been a name whispered in awe within special operations circles. Now, she was just the woman from the warehouse, the subject of cautionary tales told by men who had never seen real combat. The official story was sealed in a classified file. On a mission in Afghanistan, Sergeant Rostova had frozen under fire, resulting in friendly casualties. The truth was buried deeper, under layers of state secrets and tactical lies. The daily humiliation was a precise, military-style operation. This morning, it came from Corporal Davis during a weapons maintenance drill. "Hey, Rostova," he called out, his voice dripping with condescension as he tossed a complex, notoriously finicky sniper rifle onto her workbench. "Get this M2010 calibrated. But try not to get the shakes, hero. We actually need this one to work." Laughter rippled through the junior soldiers. Maya didn't look up. Her hands, steady and sure, began to expertly disassemble the weapon. They were powerful hands, scarred and calloused, yet they moved with a surgeon's grace. She said nothing. Silence was her armor, her foxhole in this war of whispers. Her own uniform was a battleground. Standard-issue BDUs were not designed for a figure like hers. She was mature, with the powerful, S-curved physique of an athlete sculpted into something more profoundly feminine. The drab, shapeless fabric strained across her full chest and the curve of her hips, creating a stark, almost defiant contrast to the sterile military environment. It made the men stare for reasons that mixed contempt with a crude, resentful desire. They saw her as a disgrace, but they couldn't ignore she was a woman. She finished the calibration in record time, the rifle now perfectly tuned. She slid it back across the table toward Davis without a word, her expression unreadable. He grunted, unable to find a single flaw in her work, which only soured his mood further. Later, as the base quieted, Maya sat on the edge of her cot in the sterile, lonely barracks room. The room held nothing personal, save for a single, worn photograph she kept hidden in the bottom of her footlocker. It showed her with 5 men, all smiling, their arms slung around each other in the golden light of a foreign sunset. Her team. Her brothers. All gone now. She traced the smiling face of the man next to her, a ghost's touch on a ghost's image. Her stoic mask finally cracked, not in tears, but in a wave of profound, silent grief that tightened her chest. This was her penance, to live with their memory while being scorned by soldiers who would never be fit to carry their gear. She was a guardian of their sacrifice, a monument of honor that everyone believed was a pillar of shame. The whispers at Fort Stryker were a dull, constant ache. The memory of Operation Chimera was a screaming, open wound. 18 months earlier. A jagged, unnamed mountain range in a country that officially held no American soldiers. They were a ghost unit, a 6-person tier, 1 team operating so far off the books they didn't have dog tags. Their only identifier was the emblem tattooed on their left arms, a chimera, a mythical beast of disparate parts, rendered in stark black ink. It was their bond, their brand, and, if necessary, their tombstone. Their target was a ruthless warlord, a phantom who had orchestrated attacks that had killed hundreds of civilians. Intelligence suggested his mountain fortress was impenetrable. The mission was deemed suicide. For 3 days, they moved like shadows, silent and unseen. They reached the outer perimeter of the fortress, ready to execute the final phase. Then, hell erupted. It was a sophisticated ambush. Someone had leaked their route, their numbers, their objective. Heavy machine gun fire tore through their position. In the first 10 seconds, 2 of her brothers were cut down. Within a minute, 3 more. She was left with one, Specialist Evans, her comm specialist, who was bleeding out from a gut shot. "They're everywhere, Maya, it's a kill box," he had gasped, his hands trying to hold himself together. Her training took over, a cold, perfect storm of tactical fury. Her grief was a fire she banked, turning it into fuel. While providing covering fire, she saw it, a glint of light high on the ridge. A sniper. She pulled a small, polished signal mirror from her kit, a memento from her father. Angling it just right, she bounced a blinding beam of sunlight directly into the sniper's scope. A moment's hesitation from the enemy. That was all she needed. With her free hand, she primed a thermite grenade and hurled it at a nearby propane tank depot. The resulting explosion was colossal, a roaring fireball that sent shrapnel and chaos across the enemy line. Under the cover of that man-made volcano, she grabbed the mission-critical data drive from Evans's pack just as his eyes went vacant. He was gone. They were all gone. She was alone, hunted, miles behind enemy lines. But she had the objective. For 4 days, she ran, fought, and bled her way back across the border, the data drive clutched in her hand like a sacred relic. In a sterile debriefing room in Germany, she recounted every detail. The brass listened, their faces grim. The mission was a success, the data she recovered would dismantle the warlord's network, but the cost was absolute. The existence of Operation Chimera had to be denied. Her heroism had to be buried. To explain her sudden reappearance and the psychological toll, they created a new narrative. A failed mission in a known sector. A moment of cowardice. The whispers began, sanctioned from the top down. The Chimera's fury was silenced, replaced by the story of a broken soldier. Back in the suffocating present of Fort Stryker, the bullying evolved. It took on the casual cruelty of the digital age. Corporal Davis and his friends, emboldened by their perceived impunity, decided to create content. They found a training dummy, slapped a female-coded wig on it, and filmed a short, mocking video for a military-themed social media page. In the video, Davis screamed at the dummy, "Rostova, what are you doing? Don't freeze up on us," before pushing it to the ground. The video, tagged #basefails and #washedup, went viral within the confines of the base network. Lieutenant Evans, the young, by-the-book officer, saw the video on his phone. It churned his stomach. He was new, fresh from West Point, his uniform still crisp, his mind filled with ideals of honor and camaraderie. What he saw every day directed at Sergeant Rostova felt like a betrayal of those ideals. But he was also keenly aware of his own inexperience. Questioning the judgment of these combat-tested NCOs about another soldier's alleged battlefield failure felt like career suicide. So, he stayed silent, and the silence felt like a small piece of his own honor chipping away. His doubt, however, had found a hook. A few days later, he was supervising a detail tasked with changing the heavy, run-flat tire on a mine-resistant vehicle. It was brutal work. Several soldiers struggled with the sheer weight. Maya, assigned to the detail as a matter of course, stepped in without a word. She positioned herself, bent her knees, and lifted, her back perfectly straight. The muscles in her arms and shoulders, usually hidden beneath her loose BDU top, flexed with disciplined power. The tire, which had taken 2 men to budge, came off the axle. It was a stunning display of functional strength. As she strained with the effort, the tight, worn fabric of her uniform sleeve tore slightly at the seam, just above her elbow. For a moment, a piece of the black ink tattoo was visible. It wasn't a pin-up girl or a skull, the usual fare. It was a strange, geometric design, angular and precise. Evans caught only a glimpse before she adjusted her sleeve, but the image seared itself into his mind. It didn't belong. It was a key that didn't fit any lock he knew of. That night, driven by a nagging sense of duty that overpowered his fear, Lieutenant Evans began to dig. He started with official unit insignia databases. Nothing. Then he moved to more obscure, historical archives. He spent hours navigating firewalled military forums and declassified document servers, searching for anything related to non-standard unit markings. He found whispers, fragments, redacted reports mentioning ghost units and Black Ops insignia. He didn't know what he was looking for, but he felt a growing certainty that the shame of Fort Stryker was a lie. General Marcus Thorne did not move like other 4-star generals. He didn't travel with a large entourage or follow predictable inspection schedules. He was a legend, an operator who had climbed the ranks from the mud of the Green Berets, and he believed that truth hid in the shadows, not in polished presentations. His unannounced arrival at Fort Stryker sent a shockwave of panic through the base command. While the base commander scrambled to assemble a dog and pony show, General Thorne was already on the move, his quiet, purposeful stride taking him away from the polished parade grounds and toward the grimy, forgotten corners of the base. He ended up at a remote weapons testing range, a place of cracked concrete and scorched earth. There, he saw her. Sergeant Rostova was alone, meticulously calibrating the advanced targeting system of a new drone. It was a complex, tedious task most soldiers avoided. She moved with an economy of motion, her focus absolute. Thorne watched for a full 5 minutes. He didn't see a disgraced soldier. He saw a master craftsman. He saw the unmistakable posture of a Tier 1 operator, the way she scanned her surroundings, the fluid efficiency of her movements, the deep, settled calm of someone who had made peace with chaos. Suddenly, a fighter jet from a nearby airbase screamed overhead, breaking the sound barrier with a deafening sonic boom. The concussion wave rattled the windows of the test bay. The 2 junior officers accompanying Thorne flinched, instinctively ducking. Maya didn't even twitch. She merely paused, tilted her head to track the sound with an expert's ear, and then returned to her work, her concentration unbroken. It was in that moment that Thorne started walking toward her. As he approached, she sensed his presence and stood, turning to face him. Her movement was fluid, her body snapping to a respectful but not subservient posture of parade rest. The gesture caused the front of her BDU jacket to pull taut across her chest. For a fleeting second, the sheer power of her feminine form was thrown into sharp relief against the harsh, masculine backdrop of the range, a warrior queen in a private's drab clothing. Thorne's eyes, famous for missing nothing, took it all in. But they settled on her arm. As she had turned, her torn sleeve shifted. The forbidden emblem, the chimera, was fully visible. The general stopped dead. The air grew thick and heavy. His 2 aides looked on, confused by the sudden tension. Thorne's voice, when it came, was low, a gravelly rumble that cut through the air like a knife. It was not a question. It was a challenge. Chimera's cry. Maya's body went rigid. Her blood ran cold. It was the code phrase, the one that had never been spoken to her outside the confines of that ghost mission. Her training, buried under 2 years of shame, roared to the surface. She slammed her boots together, her back ramrod straight, her hands snapping up in a perfect salute. Her eyes, which had been downcast and vacant for 2 years, now blazed with a fierce, dangerous light. Her voice was not the whisper of a ghost. It was the roar of a warrior reborn. Answered in fire, General. The silence that followed was more profound than the sonic boom. General Thorne's face was a mask of stone, but his eyes held a storm of recognition, fury, and something akin to awe. He knew that emblem. He had helped create the program it represented, a program so secret that most of the Joint Chiefs weren't fully briefed on it. My office. Now, he barked at the stunned base commander. And get me Sergeant Rostova's entire file. Not the sanitized personnel record. The black file. The one you're not supposed to know exists. Within the hour, the base's main briefing room had been converted into an impromptu tribunal. Thorne sat at the head of the table, a thin, black-bordered folder before him. He had summoned the base command staff, Lieutenant Evans, and, to their utter shock, Corporal Davis and the 2 other soldiers from the social media video. Maya stood at ease in the corner of the room, her expression unreadable. "For 2 years," Thorn began, his voice dangerously calm, "this base has been home to a lie." He opened the black file. The official record states that Sergeant Rostova failed in her duty. The truth, he paused, letting the word hang in the air, is that she is the sole survivor of Operation Chimera, a mission that prevented a chemical weapons attack on a NATO ally. He read aloud from the after-action report, his voice detailing her impossible 4-day journey through enemy territory, her tactical brilliance, her sacrifice. With each word, the faces of the officers in the room grew paler. Davis began to sweat, a smug smirk frozen on his face turning into a grimace of disbelief. "But words are insufficient," Thorn said, nodding to an aide. The main screen at the front of the room flickered to life. It showed grainy, chaotic helmet cam footage. It was the last 30 seconds recovered from her fallen teammate's device. It showed Maya, a figure of absolute fury and grace, laying down a wall of suppressive fire, her face set in a mask of grim determination as she provided cover for a retreat that would never come. It was the raw, undeniable face of heroism. Then, Thorn nodded again. A second screen lit up right next to the first. On it, the mocking TikTok video played on a loop, Corporal Davis pushing a dummy in a wig to the ground, his friends laughing. The juxtaposition was devastating. On one screen, a hero fighting for her life. On the other, cowards mocking what they could not comprehend. The room was utterly silent, the only sound the cheerful, idiotic music from the social media clip. Corporal Davis looked like he was going to be sick. He stared at Maya, truly seeing her for the first time, not as a washout, but as something far beyond his understanding. "Lieutenant Evans," Thorn's voice cut through the silence. Evans stood, his face flushed with shame. "Sir, I witnessed the harassment. I saw the video. I did nothing. I failed in my duty as an officer. I offer no excuses." "No, Lieutenant, you didn't," Thorn corrected, his gaze sweeping the room. "The system failed. We failed. We allowed a hero to be treated like a pariah to protect a secret. We forgot that the soldier is more important than the mission." He turned his piercing gaze on Davis. "You are a disgrace to that uniform. You will be stripped of your rank and reassigned to the most remote weather station in Alaska. Dismissed." As Davis and his friend stumbled out of the room, Thorn walked over to Maya. For the first time, her composure seemed to waver, her eyes shimmering with the unshed tears of 2 years of injustice. "Sergeant Rostova," the general said, his voice now softer. "On behalf of a nation that will never know your name, I thank you for your service. And on behalf of the army that failed you, I apologize." The vindication was absolute, but it tasted like ash. In the days that followed, the official story was corrected, the black marks on her record replaced with commendations so distinguished they almost seemed fictional. The offers came flooding in from the Pentagon. A promotion to Sergeant First Class. A return to Tier 1 operations. The command of her own unit. Any posting she wanted. She refused them all. In a private meeting in his temporary office, she stood before General Thorn, her posture relaxed but firm. "Sir, with all due respect, I'm declining a return to field operations." Thorn looked puzzled. "Sergeant, you're one of the finest warriors I've ever seen. You belong out there." "No, General," she said, her voice filled with a new, unshakable purpose. "The enemy that almost broke me wasn't in the mountains of Afghanistan. It was here. It was in the whispers, the jokes, the assumptions in the chow hall. The next war, sir, the most important one, is against that. It's the war for the soul of the army." She took a breath. "I want to teach. I'm requesting an assignment to the United States Military Academy. At West Point. I want to be a tactical instructor for the new cadets." General Thorn stared at her, his expression shifting from confusion to profound understanding. He saw her plan, not as a retreat, but as the most strategic forward assault imaginable. She wasn't just going to win battles, she was going to shape the warriors who would fight them. He nodded slowly. "Your request is granted, Sergeant Instructor Rostova." The final scene was not in a dusty Texas base, but in a hallowed, wood-paneled lecture hall at West Point. Maya stood at the podium, facing a sea of bright, eager faces, the future leaders of the U.S. Army. She was wearing the crisp, dark blue instructor's uniform. It was tailored perfectly, accentuating her powerful, feminine form not as a distraction, but as an integral part of her authority. She was a monument of strength, in body and spirit. She looked out at the cadets, her gaze sweeping across the room. "Good morning," she began, her voice calm and clear, carrying to the back row. "For the next 18 weeks, I will be your lead instructor for battlefield tactics. But today, we're not going to talk about flanking maneuvers or kill zones." She paused, then slowly, deliberately, rolled up the sleeve of her uniform. There, against her skin, was the stark, black ink of the Chimera. The forbidden emblem. A gasp rippled through the hall. "Today," she continued, her eyes locking with theirs, "we are going to talk about what it means to see. We're going to talk about prejudice. And we are going to talk about the price of silence. What invisible emblems do people carry? What stories of courage go unseen because we only see what we expect to see?" Share your thoughts with respect in the comments below. For more stories that uncover the truth, subscribe and ring that bell.